With NBA free agency being less than a month away, I wanted to give out one free agency target that every team should keep on their radar during this year's free agency period. And a lot of people are saying that free agency fell off, and I get it. It's not as exciting as it once was, maybe back in 2019. But there are real difference makers in this year's free agency class, and it's really going to be interesting who signs where and for the dollar amount they're going to get, especially with the salary cap rise. And I'm not going to have anybody re-signing their players featured here. Yes, the Indiana Pacers should go out and get Miles Turner, and I expect that to happen, so I don't have Miles Turner going to somebody like the Lakers. And speaking of the Lakers, we're going to start off with them, and my first free agency signing that they can go after is going to be Clint Capella. The Lakers will have full access to their mid-level exception and their biannual exception, and this could be a great place for Clint Capella to reshape his market out there in the NBA. He's coming off his least productive year in the year 2025, where he played his lowest minutes per game since the 2016 season back in Houston when he was a 21-year-old. He only started 41 games this year, averaged 9 points and 8.5 rebounds. He's not a great rim protector, but for what he may go for in free agency, the Lakers can get a massive upgrade at the 5 spot, who could be an elite alley-oop threat still at his age, like he was with James Harden and Trae Young in Atlanta and Houston. And it's not going to cost the Lakers much either. I could see Clint Capella taking a little bit of a discount to go to LA to play with a great initiating guard in Luka Doncic and even LeBron James and Austin Reeves to recoup his value on a 1-year deal. The Phoenix Suns don't have any cap space right now. They are a second apron team, so they basically can just sign minimum deals. Now, I do expect them to get under the second apron by waiving Cody Martin and declining Vasily Misic's team option, and we're probably going to see a Kevin Durant trade as well. But one under the radar free agent that I actually love out there is Kai Jones. Kai Jones was a former first round pick, 19th overall in the 2021 draft, and had some off-the-court issues that didn't allow him to pan out in Charlotte. Then he ended up appearing on the LA Clippers in the 2025 season. He got waived and appeared in 12 games for the Dallas Mavericks down the stretch, where they had a plethora of injuries. Kai Jones shot 83% from the field, averaged 11.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, and just under a block a night, and I think he can be a good rotational big, still just 24 years old, with some of the most eye-popping athleticism still in this league. He can catch alley-oops all over the place, a solid screen setter, and he can be a nice depth piece for Phoenix that desperately needs to add big man depth in free agency. And maybe they can get Kai Jones on a flyer on a minimum deal, and Jones may want to go to Phoenix because he may get more minutes than he would sign with any other team. The LA Clippers are also another team that has full access to their mid-level exception, so they can go out and sign somebody to a 4-year deal worth around $42 million, and I think they can go out and target Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis has spent the last 5 years in Milwaukee, won a title with them back in 2021, but I expect Milwaukee's roster to look a lot different in 2026. The LA Clippers need some size in the front court, they need some depth there, as well as trying to get somebody more offensive-minded. They have a really good defensive power forward in Derrick Jones Jr., they have a good defensive center in Ivica Zubac. Bobby Portis, who has finished top 3 in 6 men of the year voting in 2023 and in 2024, could be a great 6-man for the LA Clippers moving forward. He averaged 14 points last year, shot 46% from the field and 36% from 3. He could space the floor, and you can also play him out there with Ivica Zubac as well because of that skill set that he could bring for you. I would love to see the Clippers go out and get Buck here, going to the Sacramento Kings, and that is going to be Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter Jr. did not play in the NBA in 2024 because of some serious off-the-court allegations. He ended up getting picked up by the Clippers last offseason, then got traded for MarJon Beauchamp at the 2025 trade deadline. He has a $3 million player option that he has a $2.5 million player option that he's most likely going to opt out of. And the Sacramento Kings, one, need some point guard depth because I don't believe that Malik Monk can be their full-time starter throughout the course of the year. And they need to take guys on the margins that can help them improve if they're not going to reshuffle their roster completely, and Kevin Porter Jr. can be that guy. They do also have access to their full mid-level exception, but I believe that Kevin Porter Jr. would cost a lot less than that. Porter Jr. for the Bucks last year shot 49% from the field, 40% from 3, averaged 12 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds a night. Still just 25 years old and could end up as a Sacramento King. I expect the Warriors to try to target a big man that could maybe space the floor this offseason. Maybe they're going to try to target Nikola Vucevic in the trade, but Brook Lopez, another Milwaukee Buck whose contract is expiring, and like what I mentioned before with Bobby Portis, the Bucks may look to reshuffle their roster next year, and Brook Lopez may not return to Milwaukee, where he spent the last 7 years of his career, played some of the best basketball of his career, reinventing his game, not more so as a post-scoring big man, but somebody that can space the floor and adapting with the NBA's changing times. He's still a really good three-point shooter for a big man. He shot over 35% from 3 each of the last 4 years in Milwaukee. Still a solid defender as well. Not what he used to be like he was in that 2023 season, but can hold his own out there, and playing off of Draymond Green will do wonders for Brook Lopez as he ages as well. I still think he has another good year left on the tank. I don't think it would cost you too much money. You definitely definitely don't have to allocate your whole mid-level exception for Brook Lopez, and I think he could be a perfect Golden State Warrior. For the Orlando Magic, they need a bunch of different things this offseason, shooting being one of them, and a point guard that can facilitate being another, and they can get both of that in Ty Jerome. The Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be a second apron team. They're not going to be able to afford to bring back Ty Jerome, and the Orlando Magic do need to create some money to use their full mid-level exception to go out and get Ty Jerome, so that they would have to do some type of corresponding move to get this deal done, but I could see that happening because Jerome fits Orlando like a glove. It would be kind of funny after Paolo Banchero was talking smack to Ty Jerome last year, saying he wouldn't be a starter on their team, but I could see that. Ty Jerome's value may also have taken a hit given how poorly he played against the Indiana Pacers in round number 2 when they needed him to step up with the Darius Garland injury. But still, Ty Jerome was great in the 2025 season. He ended up averaging 12.5 points, 3.5 assists, shot 51% from the field, 43% from 3, and 87% from the free throw line. He could be a starting point guard in Orlando, and Jalen Suggs can help him out defensively in that backcourt, or maybe he could just play a 6-man role with Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, and him all shuffling their minutes throughout the game at the point guard position. I think this is a match made in heaven in Orlando, and I'd like to see Jeff Waltman create some cap, get back under the first apron to use that mid-level exception to go out and get Ty Jerome. One thing that's been a recurring trend in Charlotte is LaMelo Ball not being able to stay healthy throughout the course of the season, so I'd like to see the Charlotte Hornets invest in the backup point guard spot this offseason, given that they're probably going to draft a 2 guard with the 4th overall pick that may not be good enough to be a backup 1. So they can go out and get Dennis Schroeder, a good veteran on the open market that has played for a bunch of different teams as of late and could look for more of a long-term home, and I could see the Charlotte Hornets giving him a multi-year deal. Schroeder was very good last year in Brooklyn before getting traded to the Warriors. His efficiency did take a hit in Golden State and in Detroit, but showed up especially on the defensive end in the playoffs, and I think he could be a good veteran in Charlotte to be behind LaMelo Ball, and if LaMelo Ball gets hurt next year, he could be their starting point guard in a pinch. We're staying on the point guard trend here. For the Miami Heat, they should go out and target Tyus Jones. I love the pickup of Davion Mitchell. They should definitely re-sign him this offseason, but I think getting point guard depth there in Miami is needed. Let Tyler Hero still be more of an off-ball player, and he can operate moving off the ball and having Tyus Jones facilitate this offense if it's not going well with Davion Mitchell at times. Tyus Jones took a minimum contract with the Suns last year, so I'm sure he's not really willing to play for the minimum yet again. The Miami Heat do have full access to their mid-level exception. They also have access to the biannual exception of $5.1 million. They can also look to shed some money this offseason, and Tyus Jones, who averaged 10 points last year, 5 assists, shot 41% from 3, 89% from the free throw line, and played 81 games for Phoenix, I think would be a really good addition in Miami, given Tyus Jones is 29, he can help them right now, and still even in the future a little bit. And with the Atlanta Hawks probably not bringing back Clint Capella this offseason, I'd like to see them use their full mid-level exception on Steven Adams. Steven Adams is going to be a hot commodity in the free agency market this offseason. You could have mentioned him earlier with the LA Lakers or the Golden State Warriors. I think the Atlanta Hawks should be interested in Steven Adams. We saw 2 big man lineups work out well for teams last year, like the Houston Rockets and the OKC Thunder, and more so in the regular season for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's what Atlanta can do here with Clint Capella most likely not being in Atlanta next year. They can have Adams out there with Onyeka Okongwu, who's been able to space the floor and shot 32% from 3 last year, but really looked encouraging towards the end of the year. And I do think that Onyeka Okongwu could be a stretch 4 at times, and they can really shuffle some athletic and good defensive big men out there with Trae Young. You can have times Jalen Johnson at the 4, Mohamed Gay out there, Steven Adams, Onyeka Okongwu, and now they don't have to maybe reach on somebody in the draft or rely a ton on Thomas Sorber in his rookie year. If they went that route, they could sign Steven Adams, they could maybe draft a guard or 2 or a wing as well, and the Atlanta Hawks can be cooking in 2026. And then we're going to have another big man here. I think the Washington Wizards should definitely target Luke Kornet in free agency. Luke Kornet should get paid by a team this offseason, and the Washington Wizards need some big man depth. Kornet can come in and give them some serviceable minutes off the bench. At 29 years old, this could be one of Kornet's final noticeable deals of his career. And if I'm the Washington Wizards, I would give Kornet a 3-year deal to come off the bench for Alex Sarr, somebody that's played in the NBA Finals before, as well as could be a nice mentor for Tristan Vukcevic, another young big man over there in DC, especially if the Wizards don't draft a big man in the 2025 draft, or maybe if it's somebody more so as a project big man, like a Joanne Berenger, they could bring in Luke Kornet to be a nice bridge center to have out there with Alex Sarr, and could be a real formidable defensive duo in the NBA. I feel like over the last 10 years, we've seen so many players play for both the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Memphis Grizzlies. So I'm going to have the Memphis Grizzlies target a Minnesota Timberwolf, and that is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Memphis could be one of the very few cap space teams this offseason, so they can go over the non-taxpayer mid-level exception and really convince Nickeil Alexander-Walker to come down here to Memphis. Walker started off his career back in 2020 with the Pelicans and has also reinvented himself in the NBA, becoming more of a 3-and-D piece rather than a score-first player, and Memphis definitely needs a type of defender like Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the perimeter. You can have Ja at the 1, Bane at the 2, Naw at the 3, Triple J at the 4, and Zach Edey at the 5. You could shuffle him out there with Jalen Wells as well, and I do think that could be a really good addition as Naw fits that Grizzlies timeline, still just 26 years old, and I think would fit like a glove over in Memphis on the defensive end of the floor. The Houston Rockets need shooting this offseason, and somebody that really stood out last year on the veteran minimum up there in Milwaukee, Gary Trent Jr. Yes, Houston can go after somebody in the trade market that could shoot well, but they can also sign Gary Trent Jr. Let's say Houston does not trade for Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo this offseason. They can use their mid-level exception, Gary Trent Jr., who shot 41% from 3 last year in Milwaukee. He played around a very ball-dominant big man in Giannis Antetokounmpo that drew so much of the defense's gravity toward him, and Gary Trent Jr. was able to get open looks. That would be very similar over in Houston with Alperen Şengün, and we know that Gary Trent Jr. could shoot well in the playoffs. He had that Game 3 performance where he had 37 points in the Bucks' only playoff win, and when they lost in Game number 5, he had 33 points as well. You could surround him with some good defenders in Houston, like Tari Eason and Amen Thompson, and maybe they take somebody defensive-minded with the 10th overall pick, and this could be a really good addition for Houston, who definitely needs to add a little bit of shooting this offseason. The Dallas Mavericks need a point guard to bridge the gap for them in their starting lineup or coming off the bench until Kyrie Irving gets back, and I already had Tyus Jones going to Miami. They could definitely target him here. I like Tre Jones to the Dallas Mavericks. Tre Jones had a very underrated second half after getting traded from the San Antonio Spurs to the Chicago Bulls. And with the Bulls have their eyes on re-signing Josh Giddey this offseason, I think Tre Jones could lead them in free agency. Jones shot 57% from the field in the 18 games as a Bull after the deadline. He shot 50% from 3, 88% from the free throw line, averaged 11.5 points and 5 assists, and could just be a good floor general for the Dallas Mavericks. Get Cooper Flagg involved, Max Christie, Anthony Davis, and those guys, and could be a really good backup point guard until Kyrie Irving gets back. I love this addition for Dallas. I mentioned about the other Texas team, the Houston Rockets. They need to add shooting this offseason. In my opinion, the San Antonio Spurs need to add some shooting as well. Yeah, they can go out and trade for Giannis and Kevin Durant, and maybe they're not going to have that much financial flexibility, but if they can give Malik Beasley the mid-level exception, and maybe Detroit goes in a different direction, they could bring in one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, because when you have a lineup out there with Castle, Fox, Sohan, not a lot of consistent three-point shooters with those three right now, and Wemby can get an elite three-point shooter around him, somebody that shot 41% from 3 last year on 9 attempts a night. He played all 82 games for the Detroit Pistons. He averaged 16 points per game and could just be a really good sharpshooting wing for them off the bench, and it's just going to cost them their mid-level exception. I expect them to go after Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well, but if they miss out on him, Malik Beasley could be a good number 2 option. The Pelicans are going to be without their starting point guard throughout the first half of the year in DeJounte Murray as he recovers from that Achilles tear. They could definitely experiment with Zion at the 1. I wonder if they would also experiment trading away Alvarado this offseason before he's a free agent in 2026, so they could target a veteran point guard in Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon won 6th Man of the Year 3 years ago with the Boston Celtics in that 2023 season. Kind of crazy that was 3 years ago now, and his play has dropped off since that. He got traded to Portland in the Drew Holiday trade, and then got traded to Washington in the Deni Avdija trade, but I still believe he could be a serviceable backup point guard in this league. At 32 years old, he's been injured for the last 2 years, but if Brogdon is fully healthy, ready to go here in 2026, this could be a nice bridge point guard until DeJounte Murray gets back, but can also be a win-now piece for New Orleans if they're trying to make the playoffs next year. The New York Knicks aren't going to have a ton to work with this offseason. They are a first apron team, so they're just going to have access to their taxpayer mid-level exception. I wonder if they're going to trade away one of their bigs like Mitchell Robinson or Karl Anthony Towns this offseason, so they can look to get some big man depth on the open market, and they could target Charles Bassey, the 24-year-old former Western Kentucky Hilltopper that spent last year with the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs had some injuries in their front court, and with Wemby being out for the year with the blood clot, Bassey appeared in 36 games, around 10 minutes a night, averaged 4 points and 4 rebounds. I still think he could be a good enough backup big man on the defensive end of the floor, and if the Knicks let Precious Achiuwa walk and they're maybe hesitant on Ariel Hook-Porty taking a step, Bassey could be that guy for them in 2026 and shouldn't cost them that much. I would like to see Chris Paul go to a team that could be more of a finals contender next year than what I'm about to say, but I think he could be a perfect fit up north there in Toronto. Chris Paul at 40 years old has been vocal that he still wants to play in this league. He just played all 82 games as a 40-year-old, which is really incredible. Something he's only done once in his career, and that was back in 2015 with the LA Clippers. Chris Paul averaged 8.8 points, 7.4 assists, shot 37% from 3, and I think Toronto needs a floor general. I think they need another veteran in that locker room if they're serious about taking a next step in 2026. You don't have to start Chris Paul. You could still have Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly split the point guard minutes, but Chris Paul as a veteran backup point guard for you that can allow Quickly to play more off ball at times as well, I think could be a really good addition for Toronto because he's definitely a better playmaker in the passing department than Jamal Shead or Emmanuel Quickly at this moment. And yeah, like I said, he's just a great veteran to have in their locker room that doesn't have too many veterans right now. I'm just trying to figure out what team would take a chance on Jonathan Kuminga this offseason in the restricted free agency department. And I could see that being the Brooklyn Nets, a team that does not have many exciting wings right now. I feel like the value for most teams is not going to be super high for Jonathan Kuminga. So the Nets may be able to do a sign and trade with Cam Johnson this offseason or bring in Jonathan Kuminga on a fairly favorable number for the team going forward. I wouldn't mind giving Kuminga a 3-year deal to see what he can do with a career high field goal attempts tonight and seeing how he can orchestrate an offense in the half court. He broke out in 2024, averaging 16 points and 5 rebounds for the Warriors. And this past year, those numbers dropped off a little bit. 15 points, 4.5 rebounds, but dropped in the 3-point shooting and the 2-point shooting in 2025. He doesn't fit Steve Kerr's system whatsoever. I don't expect him to be a Warrior next year. And I think the Brooklyn Nets could be a nice home for Jonathan Kuminga if he's really going to break out in this league as a top 50 player one day. I talked about before with Luke Kornet potentially leaving Boston, and the Celtics also are going to try to trade away Kristaps Porzingis this offseason to get under the second apron. Who knows what's going on with Al Horford? I think they should take a chance on Isaiah Jackson, who's going to be a restricted free agent from the Indiana Pacers. We know that the Pacers are going to eventually have to pay Miles Turner this offseason. Benedict Mathurin is a restricted free agent next offseason as well. Boston may be able to outbid a little bit against Indiana for Isaiah Jackson, especially if they're able to duck that second apron, because then they can give Isaiah Jackson $5.6 million a year on maybe a multi-year deal. And this may be one of the few homes where Isaiah Jackson could be a starting center for you in 2026. Now, it really just depends how he's going to look after tearing that right Achilles back in November. And if he's ready to go on opening night, I think this could be a good addition for Boston, both right now and when Jason Tatum comes back in a year. The Philadelphia 76ers desperately need some more big man depth behind Joel Embiid. I like a Dembona, and I'd like to have somebody that could be better than Andre Drummond moving forward, and they could target Sandro Mamukelashvili. Always have to lock in when I'm saying that last name, but he could be a very, very interesting free agent this offseason if San Antonio goes in a different direction, because the 6'11 big man shot 37% from 3 last year on 2.5 attempts a night. He was the 54th overall pick back in the 2021 draft. He could play out there with Joel Embiid as well. He could play a little bit of the 4, a little bit of the 5, and Embiid can help him out defensively. I think that'd be a great add in the city of brotherly love. For Utah, I just want to see these young guys get more reps. It's a shame that Taylor Hendricks had his sophomore year washed due to injury. Utah has another 2 first-round picks in this year's draft, so I'd like to see them add a more veteran big man, and that could be Larry Nance Jr. from the Atlanta Hawks. I talked about it before. Atlanta going after Steven Adams. If they're going to lose Clint Capella this offseason, and maybe they don't bring back Larry Nance Jr., who's 32 years old. He could be somewhat of a stretch big man as well. He shot 45% from 3 last year in 24 games for the Atlanta Hawks, and I think you could play him out there with Walker Kessler. You could play him out there with Lauri Markkanen, and they just need more veterans over there, in my opinion, especially if they trade away some of their veterans right now, like Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, and John Collins. The OKC Thunder aren't going to do much in free agency. Basically, everybody on this title team is under contract next year, and they have 2 first-round picks as well. I wouldn't mind them, though, taking a flyer on a Christian Koloko, who was banged up in the 2025 season. He only appeared in 37 games with the Lakers, averaged 9 minutes a night, but the Thunder had some big man depth issues earlier in the year, where Hartenstein and Chet were banged up. Even Jalen Williams was banged up, so J-Dub had to play the center position at times. Koloko's probably going to just cost you the veteran minimum, and he can be an upgrade over Braden Carlson as like your 3rd string big man going forward. Hear me out. I'm not joking with this one. If the Denver Nuggets can make Russell Westbrook look good because of Nikola Jokic, maybe he could do the same with Ben Simmons. Yeah, I am targeting Ben Simmons if I'm the Denver Nuggets, a team that is not going to have that much flexibility this offseason with a Christian Brown extension looming. Maybe they're going to end up trading away Michael Porter Jr., but if Ben Simmons is willing to come here on a 1-year deal, he could see what Russell Westbrook did around Nikola Jokic. Maybe Ben Simmons can do the same. He's still a fine enough defender who really only needs to play around 12 to 15 minutes a night, and the Denver Nuggets need guys like that as well. Now, you run into some floor spacing issues if you have him out there at the same time as somebody like Peyton Watson or Russell Westbrook, but I think this is worth the chance on the upside that he could bring here in Denver. Denver, because Denver needs to take a swing on some of these guys if they're trying to win within this window around Nikola Jokic. I don't really want the Portland Trailblazers to do too much this offseason. I wouldn't mind them trading away Anthony Simons, and if they can, trade away DeAndre Ayton or Jeremy Grant, but I think they could look for another veteran point guard on the market. So I'm going to predict that the Suns are going to decline the team option of Vasilije Micic, and that's who can go to Portland if he still wants to play in the NBA. The 31-year-old could be a solid backup or third string point guard to Scoot Henderson next year, or maybe Portland ends up taking a point guard like a Kasparas Shakishonis with the 11th overall pick, and Micic can be a good veteran point guard for those two going forward. I just mentioned how the Suns are probably going to decline the option of Vasilije Micic, and I briefly mentioned it earlier. They're going to waive Cody Martin's non-guaranteed contract next year to duck the second apron. That's why they made that Jusuf Nurkic trade back at the deadline, and I think Minnesota could be all over Cody Martin, especially if they lose Nickeil Alexander-Walker this offseason. He's somebody that had up and down playing time last year when he got to Phoenix, only appearing in 14 minutes a night, but I still think he could be a good swingman wing, and that can really get the most out of his value over there in Minnesota that is looking for some guys that can cut and slash and play decent enough defense coming off the bench. Shouldn't cost them much either. I don't expect the Pacers to do too much either this offseason. I mentioned multiple times that their main priority is going to be bringing back Miles Turner. They may look to make a trade this offseason because ownership doesn't pay the luxury tax, and they're probably going to be in the tax next year. So maybe there's a Mathurin trade, a Walker trade, or a TJ McConnell trade, and that could be the domino effect of my free agency target for them, Delano Banton, coming over from the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers may let him walk this offseason, and I think there's some scoring upside still there in Delano Banton. He did struggle at times for Portland in 2025, but man, he was really impressive at times for them in 2024, and I think could be a good enough backup or third string point guard, and there's a high upside swing there for Indiana going forward. 6'9" point guard, why not take a chance on him? The Cleveland Cavaliers also don't really have a lot of flexibility this offseason. They're a second apron team right now. Mentioned before how they're not going to be able to bring back Ty Jerome. I think they could take a chance on Jayshawn Tate, though. The Rockets wing was undrafted back in that 2020 class, and he really showed out for the Rockets in 2021 as a rookie, and even in 2022 as a sophomore, when they didn't have many exciting young pieces going forward. Now, as they drafted highly, they added guys like Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson, Şengün, etc. He got pushed down and down in the rotation, and I still think there's a solid defensive-minded small forward out there. He's 29 years old, and maybe the Cavs look to trade Isaac Okoro this offseason to duck the second apron. Jayshawn Tate can maybe take those minutes in 2026. The Milwaukee Bucks don't own their draft capital next year, and maybe they end up trading Giannis Antetokounmpo, maybe they don't. And if this player opts out of his $3 million player option, I would like to see them take a chance on him. I don't think he can play out there with Giannis because they both really can't shoot the three ball. But yeah, go out and get Russell Westbrook in Milwaukee. He can help you out throughout the regular season, elevate your team's floor, and he may not cost you much either, especially if Denver doesn't want him anymore. I think him playing off Giannis could be just as good as him playing off of Nikola Jokic. I think you can get a serviceable enough season out of Russ. And yeah, teams like the Suns or the Bucks that don't have their draft capital next year that have to be good in the regular season could definitely target Russell Westbrook this offseason. I don't want the Chicago Bulls to add any veterans in free agency unless they're just going to be locker room guys. I think they could take a chance on Jake LaRavia, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent after the Memphis Grizzlies did not pick up his fourth-year team option. They traded him to the Sacramento Kings at the deadline for basically nothing, and I think he could be a nice depth wing piece that is still just 23 years old, who shot 42% from three last year. He's 6'8", 6'9", can handle the ball very well. I'd like to see some minutes with him and Matas Buzelis out there playing off each other. I think that should definitely be a Bulls target in this year's free agency period. And the last one here is going to be Naz Reid being targeted by the Detroit Pistons, the team that can create some cap space this offseason. Maybe they look to make a trade or two to free up even more money, and they can make Naz Reid very rich. Now, you have to convince Naz Reid to not re-sign with Minnesota, which I expect to happen, but he's going to opt out of that player option. He's going to meet with some teams, and Detroit should be all over that. Fits their timeline at 25 years old, can be the 4 or even a stretch 5 at times if you have good defenders like Ron Holland and Asar Thompson out there with them. He shot 38% from three last year, averaged 14 points per game. And maybe he doesn't end up going to the Detroit Pistons, but they could drive up his asking price as well. And maybe he's going to end up making a surprising 25+ million a year from the Minnesota Timberwolves. But if he's willing to listen to Detroit, Detroit should definitely go all in on Naz Reid. So yeah, that's it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the free agency target that I gave for your favorite team down below. And if maybe there's somebody else you'd like to see your team target, let me know down there as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you are not already. You can also follow my Instagram and TikTok down below as well. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.